Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all. Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? Today, I have the pleasure of having these two fine gentlemen. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you're about to hear these two who I have the pleasure of not only working with, but being, good friends and investors and almost like mentors as well, as they've taught me so much. And today in the lab, they were going to share with you their experiments that they've done. And they are true practitioners. So they speak what they practice. And so without further ado, I want to invite Leonard, Dixon, and Vishnu Chintam of Shoreditch Consulting LLC, which is taking over the South, y'all. And I'm really excited to have these two gentlemen here with me today. And so V and L, welcome to the lab, man. What is going on, gentlemen?
Ruben, thank you for having us. We're excited.
Absolutely. Look, I gotta give you some context, because even that introduction wasn't. So if you guys are listening to this or you're watching this, I'll start with Leonard. Leonard, your background, you come from a branding and marketing, and we've obviously had a chance to kind of collaborate together on that when we were working together on getting those fix and flips out into the marketplace. And V is the complete opposite. It makes him want to throw up. I remember him actually even rejecting one of my songs that I had, DJ'd out for one of our listings. I'm like, so it is not V's cup of tea. In other words, V doesn't got, he don't got good taste. V is the numbers guy. He's the builder. You've been building for a good amount of years. You bring a lot of that boots on the ground and analytical experience as well. And Leonard, I know that you've really been involved as well on the funding piece. So I'm actually really interested to see how you guys mold so well together, but I want to take a step back because I believe that a good business is a reflection of the people behind it. So I want to take a step back. I'll let you guys know how I met V, which then introduced me to Leonard. But more importantly, you guys who started the foundation, how did you guys meet? Like, what's the story there?
I'm not letting Leonard do this one. Messes up this story every single time.
Or better, if V's gonna tell us the version that he likes better. Is that what I'm hearing, Leonard?
Yeah, okay, V.
Well, the truth is the truth. Facts are facts. So what I will say is, so Leonard and I met. There is a radio personality, the DJ Envy, I believe, and his partner, Caesar, exactly. So DJ Envy is in a small radio show called Breakfast Club, right, which is probably one of the biggest radio shows in the nation. And DJ Envy is a real estate investor, and so the long and short of it is, I went to they had a conference or at a hotel and that whole thing. And I went there just to, I was trying to get back into real estate again. And I needed to just to kind of acquaint myself, because it had been years that I had done real estate. So I went to it, and basically that ended up, one of their real estate agents was doing a bus tour in Paterson, New Jersey. So DJ Envy, Caesar, they're all, I'm sorry, Caesar and these other, they're from Paterson, right? And so I wasn't familiar with Paterson. They did kind of a tour of Paterson for investment properties. And so I'm on the tour, right? And we're going through these investment properties, right? And for buy and hold. And Paterson has a very diverse, it can go from these beautiful houses to very, D class, and even that D might be pushing it, actually, right? It can be sometimes war zones, right? But at the time, at least, it's changing rapidly. So this was 2 years ago, roughly, right? A little bit more than 2 years ago. A little bit more than 2 years. So that's one thing, is our company isn't really that old, but I'll get into that later. But the point is, I'm on this tour, right? And then toward the very end of the tour, right? This very beautiful man, right? Walks in and is, full. Look at Leonard's.
Styling, profiling.
That's right, styling, profile. But not only that, he's late. By the way, he's late, and he comes in there like a hurricane, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" His enthusiasm was just very. It was contagious. It was magnetic, right? But I'm like, who is this guy coming in here at the ass end of this tour, right? And is like, I want to see this property. It's like, man, you missed the tour, man. But so there was 2 properties left that Leonard actually talked to them about prior. And so I was like, this guy, and he's from New York. And I'm like, you know what? Let me go check out. I was about to get out of there. I was not interested in what I was seeing, but I was like, who is this cat? And let me go see these 2 properties with this. So, so I kind of just tagged along, and me and Leonard, I jumped in the car with them. We just started talking. Right. And so they went to go take us to the property, and I will cut to the chase here. The second property, my friend, right, that Leonard was very, very interested in prior to seeing it, by the way, right. We go into this property and I am not interested at all. These are you don't want to be. I was like, I never want to come back to this part of Patterson for the rest of my life. I'm good. This is a one and done. But Ruben, I kid you not, just terrible properties, right? We're walking outside of this property, and we didn't get to see the ground floor tenant. It's a 3 flat. We didn't get to see the ground floor tenant. She happens to be walking in while we're walking out of the agent showing us this place, and she goes, "You all don't want to buy here." She's like, "Come, let me show you something." And she shows us 2 bullet holes into the property that my friend Leonard there was itching to buy, my man. And that's how we met.
Yeah. L, what's your version?
Why
were you late, man? Where were you going?
Well, one, I've never been to Patterson before, right? So, just trying to navigate with Google Maps, getting there, right? So I get there. I was calling the agent to find out where they're at. And so that was a little bit just trying to get on the phone. Finally got on the phone. He told me where they're actually at, sent me the address. I had to figure out to get over there. So that's why, I was a little bit late. But, the property he was talking about, the property was, wasn't that great. It wasn't that great, but the cash flow they were talking about after you pay your mortgage and everything was about like $1,900. So $1,900 of cash flow. So, for any investor or, anybody listening, that's not bad, right?
Yeah, no.
The only bad thing about those properties that were showing us in Patterson was that there was no appreciation. So once you bought it, what you're really buying was cash flow, right? You buy it at a certain price. Of course, they raise the price up a little bit, and then what you're really getting was this cash flow. So I looked at it, was like, could I use an extra $1,900 every month? Yeah, but then I really wanted a full real estate investor experience of buying a property for a certain price. Over the year, that appreciation for that property goes up, and hopefully refinancing or selling it later on, right? Yeah. That wasn't really happening because the area of Patterson with V mentioned was like pretty dangerous, and there wasn't a city plan. When I'm talking about city plan, like I'm talking about a plan to revitalize that area. It wasn't really in place yet. So that's why I was kind of deterred of not buying that particular 3 flat property building, actually.
And to clarify that, there had, Patterson had, it is developed. It was 2 years ago, but the specific areas that we were looking at, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that those haven't appreciated. Everything is appreciated, right? So would Leonard have been good? The problem was, if you're looking at the price point that they were selling at with the income that he was about to get was, and I don't remember what that price point was, but to me,
it was 325.
Right. So if we start doing that kind of math, it wasn't the
cash on cash you're looking for.
Yeah.
The guy bought the property. The guy who was selling me the property, he owned a bunch of he was like a slumlord. He owned a bunch of properties in Patterson. He
Mhm.
bought that property for like 70K. So he was
Yeah.
about to make, he was making a killing,
That's
right?
so
70K to
so this is
325, he was making a killing.
yeah, this is interesting because I kind of want to hear and I'm gonna get to this in a second about the route you guys went because you were Leonard interested in the buy and hold, and
Yeah.
then you guys kind of had looked at the numbers and then you guys took a different route.
Yeah.
Right. And I know this because I started getting involved with you
Yeah.
guys in Atlanta with the flipping. But before I get there, I want to give some context because I think that's important before
Yeah.
we get into the strategy that you guys went into. What was your itch for showing up at that DJ NV kind
Yeah.
of, what was that? Guys, your background is branding, marketing.
Yep.
And at the time, remember when we were working together, you had transitioned from part-time and then I think you went kind of full-time with
Yeah,
Shoreditch.
totally. Yeah, totally.
So
I mean,
yeah, to give some background, like what was
yeah,
your
I mean,
calling for that
yeah, I mean,
to be like, I want to get into this?
totally. I mean, I was working in corporate America in digital media. I was a sales director. So what happened for me was that my mom, who passed at the time, she was still alive, and she was like, "Hey, you need to supplement your income, right? You're making this type of income now, but later on, as you age, you're not going to be making this income. What's your fallback plan? You rent. I renting. Why don't you at least buy something, and live in it, and and rent out the house. So she wanted me to buy like a multifamily, and at the time I started to listen to Bigger Pockets, and like a lot of early investors, you so listen to Bigger Pockets, and it was one particular episode of Bigger Pockets that had a woman from Detroit. She was a waitress. She was making 25K a year. She had 2 kids, and she bought her first property in Detroit, right? Granted, Detroit market isn't that expensive. You could buy houses for 14K. I heard even less. So granted, but the thing about it was that what I really got from that was that she took a leap out of desperation. She didn't know. She bought this house, fixed it up, refinanced out, and bought another house. She bought 4 houses in the span of 2 years. And then like her property value went up, and she was worth close to $1 million with her real estate properties. And I was like, she started out again with a 25K salary, and she took that leap. And she had 2 kids, but she wanted a better life for her 2 kids. I at the time was making 6 figures, and I was like, well, what's my excuse? And that was 2 months before I went out to Patterson. So 2 months time frame, I went to Patterson, and I was determined to get my first investment property. But I met
V talks some sense into you. He's like, hold on there.
Yeah.
And V continues to remind us this, and I think you guys do both a good job of this, and that's why I appreciate you saying this, L, because I think sometimes you just need to hear another perspective, and I think it's important before we even get into where you are now. I think we see a lot of that, but we don't talk a lot about, whoa, what about the before? What about the mistakes? What about the where I was in that position? And I think the best way for us, the best way brands do well is by being relatable. And sometimes you come on these platforms, we completely forget about the process and we talk about where we're at already. So I always want to take us a little bit back, because there might be an executive out there who's in branding and marketing who's like, wait, this is me. Like, this is right. And V, for you, what I like that's really neat is you had a over a decade of experience in real estate, and you took a little bit of a break, it sounds like. Can you just give a little bit of context before we get into kind of what you guys started building?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the thing. So when me and Leonard saw that second property, we were in the car, he was dropping me off. The long and short of it was, I was just like, hey, instead of buying these crazy properties. Why don't let me just tell you about fix and flipping. And I was like, just think about it. He called me I think less than a week later, and then we started talking, and then we became partners. And that's how our story is. Now to your point,
hold on, V. Actually, V called me.
There we go. Here we go. This reminds me of our three-way group text. Bring it back.
So V called me.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "Well, the agent called me today, and he sent me the contract." And I told V the price, and V was like, "Oh, do you look at the comms, look at the numbers?" And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of did." And V was like, "Well, what's the address again?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's not worth that price, dude." And he was like, "I would lowball him, and don't give him the 325, come in a lower number." He was like, "I'll tell him like 309 and 37." He was just like, "I'll come lower. It's not worth 325." And then that was it. That was that one conversation right there. And I tried to do that. They told me no, it has to be at 325, the asking price. And I told V, me and V had another conversation. And V was like, "Hey, it's up to you, man. But I tell you this," V's like, "I tell you this. You can buy that property or come on this journey with me, and you can then go buy a 12 unit or a 15 unit building instead of that 3 unit."
You sold him his dream up front.
He's like, "Hey, choice is yours, no pressure, but it's up to you if you want to come on this journey."
And he's regretted it ever since. He's like, "Why didn't I buy that property?"
Headache free, stress free. All right, so let's fast forward because you guys. So V, what did you see in flipping? Because I want to get right into it. You guys are doing some interesting things because you're both dialing in, if you're listening to this, from New York, right? And you guys are not investing in New York.
No.
You're not flipping in New York, which is really cool because we talk about this a lot and it seems a little foreign to us. And sometimes you don't want to pull the trigger. And the reason I'm looking at my shelf here, I know that there's a book here that we talk about the Bigger Pockets crew, and I think it's investing out of state, but you guys are flipping out of state. So first of all, why flipping, V? Like, how did you persuade Mr. Dixon?
So he said exactly, and his memory is of course way better than mine, but that was essentially what the thing about, we all know about fix and flipping, right? And it's the good and bad about it. It'll give you that cash. It'll give you cash, right? And our goal has always been, which we haven't achieved, but we will in this next year, is to take that cash and then of course get that wealth play, which is the buy and hold. Now, if you're doing that through LTR or STR, different subject matter. But the point is, that's what we've always tried. That is our goal, right? In real estate, is to get to the owner. We want to be the owner investor of multifamilies or commercial or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I was just saying to Leonard is, there's better ways to do things so that you can get a bigger project, more doors essentially, right? Or multiple doors in different projects. But the way that we can do that is through flipping. My background, it's not, and I appreciate that, Ruben, it wasn't a decade. It was actually about a half a decade and maybe a little shy of that.
I'm always here to make you look good, baby. I got you.
No, absolutely.
I'm just rounding up. 5 to 10, not 4 to 5. But thank you for that correction. Yep.
So for me, I worked for a general contractor in Chicago, but that was many years ago, right? And I was boots on the ground. So I was actually the one that was, dealing with the contractors, dealing with the budgets, dealing with, in many cases, that we were, when he first started that company, or at least when I joined the company, we were still doing even, bathrooms and just small rehab jobs. So like remodel jobs. So, and then eventually where we ended up was 2 million. Again, this is the year 2020, by the way. So $2 million luxury homes in Chicago, right? So I was boots on the ground dealing with everything really, except for the funding and the investment side, right? So I had that background. I did that for a couple of years in Chicago, and then I went and did a bunch of non-real estate related things, and then came back, and that's when I met Leonard many years later. But I came back instead of boots on the ground, right, on the investor side. And so that's what I meant. And I think that's really, and this is for the audience, is like, look, what the value that me and Leonard bring, right, is so we can hit one thing right off the bat. A lot of times buy and holders want that tax depreciation, correct? They love it. It's one of the best things about real estate. What I would say to you is that of course it's great, but you want to do things in sequence, because what me and Leonard do, right? And this is one of the things that, we've integrated into our company, is the business funding aspect, right? So essentially what people are doing is, if you're taking, like, say you're in your first year and you bought a bunch of buy and holds and you're depreciating everything, right? Well, how does that look to a lender? You look like you're broke. That's what you did that on purpose, right? And so the fundability can then become an issue, right? Depending on where you're going to get a loan. Now, if you're dealing hard money loans, okay, they're obviously like a portfolio loan with a hard money lender or private lender, that's a different story. But my real point is, you want to do things in sequence depending on your needs and wants, whereas most people are just like buy and hold tax depreciation, and they don't think about the future.
The end goal. Yeah.
So that's why we didn't do that, right? We went a different route, because we did take a massive hit for taxes, but now we can show that tax return, right? And show that, hey, we can show it, and it makes us more fundable.
Yeah. I think that's really important, what you're saying, because I remember hearing this on I think maybe, I forget who it was. I don't know if it was on Bigger Pockets, but I think it's important to highlight that if you don't define your end strategy, you might look at everything that, oh yeah, this makes sense because, tax depreciation, sure. But what you're saying is, if you're showing that your bottom line was less, then, from a lending perspective, it's going to look like, oh, well, you didn't make any. So, but if you understand your end strategy and you don't want to write off as much, then it's showing that your bottom line is greater and you're getting taxed more, but then you're also showing that you can make more and you can get lent more. Is that what you were saying?
Exactly. So you're essentially right. We could have, you can always depreciate and you'll get that tax benefit. You'll reduce your tax liability. But what are you do? Like, the question should be, what are you doing? Like you said, the strategy. You might. So for some people that's great and that's all they want, and I'm not here to argue that, right? What I'm saying is, I would at least want you to think about it, because you might be
hurting yourself. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, your fundability.
Yeah.
Fundability, however you want to call it. So for us, because we're all about leverage, right? We want to leverage as much as possible. I was very keen to make sure we still make mistakes. We're always learning, right? But that was something that I always kept in mind, and I still to this day, and the stuff that we help people with that I'm sure we'll get into later.
Yeah, so let's talk about it for a little bit, because I think it'll give some good context as to like what your strategy is going into Ohio, going to markets like Atlanta, going to, still developing in Chicago. What can you because I think we touched on it, but I want to bring it home.
Yeah.
Help me tie this together, because I know I was experiencing this, which seems like a long time ago, but this was already in the beginning of this year. We were closing out on, a few of those 2 properties we were working on, and right, I think one was in December, November, and then the other was in January, which was a little bit delayed. We wanted to close it. I know I can hear the heat and the pressure from V. We got to close this before the end of the year, Ruben. And I was representing on the Asian side, but I learned so much. And part of the conversation I kept hearing from Leonard and Vishnu is, hey, we got to show the lender X, Y, Z so that, moving forward, we can get better funding. Can you explain to me what that was that you needed to show? Because I think this is a big thing that I was exposed to that I didn't necessarily know. I don't know if V, you want to take this on, and then Leonard, I think you can also give me some insight because you guys were going back and forth with appraisal committees and all that, and why that was so important with what you were trying to do.
And to be clear, what V's about to explain is about when you're dealing with a hard money lender. So yeah, V.
So and give some context. Dealing with a hard money lender for your fix and flips. The reason it's important, that's your funding, that's your financing, and they have their own criteria too, especially maybe if you're in the beginning stages. And so just to tie it all together, knowing your end strategy of what Shoreditch Consulting is trying to do in the space, what was so critical and important in the beginning that you needed to establish with those hard money lenders?
Yeah, so the thing is, like for fix and flips and hard money side, there's a couple of things that we should talk about. I didn't ignore what you asked us about remote flipping, which we can.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to it. Just let's give some context. I think it's important. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're ARV based loans, right? On I'm only talking about fix and flip, right? So the type of financing that we go after. So the ARV based loans is after repair value, right? And so it's going to be based on once you're done with that project, what is the value of that home? So we live and die by that because that's our entire lending is based on that. So your comp analysis has to be on point. And if it's not, that's when you get into trouble, right? Because you could potentially get the loan and the ARV isn't there and now you're underwater, right? So because of maybe that appraiser wasn't good or the desktop appraisal didn't come in accurately. So you need to know the ARV in and out. No, there is no negotiation on that. What I do and what we do in our business is I put on an appraiser hat, right? And I'm very conservative with my numbers. I'm very conservative with the comps. In a metropolitan area, we only do metropolitan areas, by the way, right? But we don't go out more than a half a mile, even though some appraisers say, go, Ruben, you know this, we talked about it many times, go out a mile. Some people say two. It's like, no, we're not doing all that. Right. Because
and what V's talking about for the folks listening, just to give some context for the comparables, we're talking about comparables that they're going to look at based on your ARV. So if you're saying, hey, my after repair value is going to be $400,000, what V is saying, he wants to be super conservative and not even try to even flirt with going out to 2 miles. He wants to see what's happening within the 0.5 mile radius because he doesn't want to take the chance that the lender might say, hey, no, actually, it's not worth 400,000. It's a little bit less, right?
Absolutely. So if you do the half a mile, who's arguing with you? If you go back 6 months in time of sold comps, don't fool around with those pending comps and for sale comps, that none of that counts, right? And it doesn't matter what this is what I say a lot in Clubhouse, right? It doesn't matter what you think. No one cares what you think, right? What matters is what that appraiser comes in at. It's because you want to close the deal. The goal is to close the deal. Just only worry about that. All opinions are out the window, right? So then as far as time, and sometimes I get pushback, right? And I don't care, right? This is how we appraise, this is how we get to this is how it works, right? So it's like to Ruben's point, half a mile out, as far as proximity, location wise, time, as far as your sold comps, 6 months back, period. When you're dealing with a hard money lender. If you're dealing with a private investor, that's a different, that you have more leeway, right?
You guys, and have you guys gotten to the point where you are working with private investors, or has it been strictly hard money?
Go ahead, Leonard.
No, so it's been a combination of both. So it's been a combination of hard money and private investors, but we're at a point now that we're able to go into a project with only investors now. So
okay. So let's get to that in a second, because I want to touch on this, because I want to do the private money versus hard money, and that you guys have had both of the experience. But let's build on the hard money part for just 1 second. And maybe Leonard, you can help me on this one, just because I think V obviously did a good job starting to explain this. Just if I'm listening to this, okay, this makes sense. We'll make the number super simple, $100,000. Because I know this is one thing that you guys drilled with me, and I learned so much from you guys asking these basic questions, or what might seem basic, but really is the foundation. It's really critical, right? Once you understand this. So let's say you buy the property for $40,000, and you're telling the lender that you can, hey, listen, based on the comparable, sticking around 0.5. I know that the after repair value can be 100K. And the reason I'm using 100K, guys, is to keep it super simple. I'll have my calculator here to keep us honest. I don't want us to play with some crazy numbers. Could you give us some ideas as to how much a hard money lender would lend on that? I know we always talk about the percentage of the ARV. What were you looking at? Because I think that will help our listeners identify, okay, this is kind of like what you're playing in.
I think so off of that, so one thing, right? So the hard money lenders that we work with usually lend at 70% of the ARV, right? And they're lending on the price to purchase a property and the price to repair it, right? So when we do our numbers, we're adding both, right? The repair costs and the purchase costs together, right? So for example, so we do 7% of 100K, right? So
Yes.
Right, you use 7% of 100K, and then I'm doing it right now. Sorry, my phone. So
No, it's perfect. We're in the lab. Don't apologize for being on.
Cool.
We should pull out the whiteboard. We've got some listeners. So right now you're saying, I think the scenario that I gave, if you want to help out their listeners, someone who might not be as visual, is we're saying that and correct me if this isn't going to help these for the sake of the exercise, but if the after repair value is $100,000, the lender is going to give you $70,000.
Boom, nailed it.
yeah,
Okay.
And by the way, like let's just clarify what Leonard's saying. So there's also max LTV a lot of times. Okay, so they'll lend up to 70% of max LTV stands for loan to value.
Yep.
Right, which is different than LTC, which is loan to cost, which you'll see.
Ooh. Okay, so what's the difference here? Because I don't even think I knew that. Here, help me out.
Yeah,
loan to cost versus loan to value.
So we've been talking about ARV and right after repair value and LTV, loan to value. LTC is loan to cost. So it's actually a little bit more straightforward. So say that you're in your $100,000 example, right? The total loan. Oh, well, okay. So the ARV in the example that you brought up is $100,000, right? So after we repair this property, it's going to be worth $100,000. So in the ARV LTV model, right, it's going to be, they're going to loan up to 70% of that. So, right. But the trick is that what if you have a deal? The beautiful thing about the value is the value, right? So if you have a deal, that's how you can lower your loan cost. Okay, and so that goes back to a lot of things that we were talking about earlier. So the value loans, and I'll get to LTC in a second. You could, for example, if you buy a short sale or a wholesale deal, and you get a really, really great deal, you're right, and you're buying an after repair value of 100,000. But what if you only paid $10,000 for it?
Well, yeah, that was what I was going to ask you next, and this is why I want to use simple term numbers for our audience. What would be a good steal? Is it a 30K? Is it a 40K? A 50K? At what point? And I know I'm setting you up for the slam dunk here, hopefully, because there's costs involved with fixing this, right? So for you, what is that sweet spot? We have a nice example here. ARV is 100K, loan to value is 70K. If I'm listening to this, what's a sweet spot? Am I at 30? Am I at 40? Am I at 20?
I think you should go to Penelope. I think Penelope was a pretty sweet deal. The Penelope.
Yeah. Do you remember the numbers on that? I can't remember, but yeah.
I do. Yeah, I do.
Rattle off. We'll walk
right. Yeah, I mean, so Ruben, you helped out with a 3-2 and a single family, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom in Atlanta. And was it in Mosley Park area? I forget. We flip a lot.
It's right.
Not quite, but it was close.
Okay, it was close.
Yeah.
So we brought that property for $92K. And that was the purchase price. The ARV was it came in at $250, right? So when we went to our hard money lender, it was $68,000 to repair it. So if you add up $92K plus $68K, rehab budget. So 92 plus 68 equals 160, right? Yep. So 160 all in to purchase it and to repair it. And then the ARV came at 250, right? So for that particular property, the way that our lending was set up is that we come out of pocket at close at all.
So let's just clarify that for the audience. So what you're going to do, right? This is how you start it off. Always start with the value, the after repair value. So Leonard, the after repair value with Leonard. So just for the folks in the lab, right? Oh. You're going to take the ARV, which is $250,000.
Yep.
And then you're going to multiply that by 70%.
Yep.
0.70, correct? So that takes you to 175.
Yep.
Right.
Got it.
So 175 is our loan cost, or let me say it's our maximum loan amount.
Yep.
Got it.
So 175 purchase price. So what did we have at that time? We had an ARV, right? When we had an ARV of 250. What else did we have? We have the purchase price, which I know, Ruben, right? You brought that price down. That was you and friend Diego, I believe, negotiated that price down for us. So now we have 175 is our loan amount. We know the purchase price, which is 92, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. So we take, and then so what is missing? Well, the rehab budget.
Yeah.
Right. And so then what did we do? Let's take let's take folks to the process. Ruben negotiated a due diligence period of, I believe, 3 to 5 days. We had our so we went into contract.
Yeah.
Right. Because we saw that this price was $92,000 on this property. Guys, this was like at the very beginning of COVID. I remember this now. So there was a couple of times we got some great deals. So we got this property. I think it was 92 and a half, but either way, 92 for ease of sake of purchase price. ARV 250, multiply that ARV 250 times 70 puts you at 175. Take your 175. What do we have left? 175 minus 92, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Leonard and I do math differently, but we're coming to the same place. The rehab budget that we're allowed, right, is $83,000. Did I do that math right, guys? You guys know I'm terrible at math.
Yeah, I'm good. I have you here. 175 minus the 92,000, which is the purchase price, allows us to. We have 83K to work with in rehab costs to leverage the max loan value.
And that rehab cost we have at 83. So then what did Ruben do? Ruben negotiated a 5-day due diligence period, which allowed our contractor to go in, right, and give us a rehab budget. To Al's point, that's where the $68,000 came from, right? Yeah. From our contractor, right? And by the way, our partner at the time, and a great contractor, I would say. So $68,000, right, is where he came up with. So that's so where are we at? 92.
Yep.
Plus 68 is 160, right? And we had to come under 175. And so now this is the really great point that I think a lot of people don't understand. And Ruben, to your point earlier, once you get a certain amount of HUDs, right? When you're on the loan and you've purchased the property and then you've sold it, right? So in this case, flicks and flips. Once you have a certain amount of HUDs, there is such thing as 100% financing. So we had that we have it now, right? And that's going to be, not all lenders talk about it. Not all lenders have it. Hard money lenders have it. So essentially what we did, right, and by the way, a lot of this has to do with necessity. We didn't have a lot of money to be throwing around. So we came in under that 70% LTV, right? So we had 100% financing. I think on that property, I'm trying to pull up the HUD right now, but essentially,
I mean, we use on the sold price or just
no, what we paid for to get into that loan. To get into that loan, we paid. And again, I apologize for not having this for you, but it was a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's really interesting, because when you talk about 100% financing, is that, just so we understand, is that possible because you guys worked within the max loan value?
Exactly. Exactly. So
So
if
that, yeah, the better deal that you can get within that window, the less that you can use based on what the after repair value is, with respect to the 70% of that after repair value, the more the less you come out of pocket, if anything, right?
you just nailed it. That's exactly it. So the loan cost dramatically decreases, and it's quote unquote 100% financing. We still have to pay interest, right? We still have to pay. If now with this particular lender, right, we still have to pay interest for the duration of the loan, but what are we paying when we go to sit down at that closing table to purchase, correct, is what I'm talking about. And that's the part that's quote unquote 100%. Now, if you get such a great deal with this particular lender, if you're so below that 70% LTV, they'll roll in the closing costs, right?
Yeah.
So you can pay the closing costs on the back end when you close
Yeah.
out the loan.
What's the for those of us listening, because I know now there's a lot of different resources and we want to get to the private money in a second, but what kind of interest rate are we talking about here on $175,000 max loan value for the holding cost of like what, a six to 7 month, 8 month project? Is that what we're, just to give some.
So for
Yeah, I was gonna say for that particular project, it wasn't that the duration wasn't bad at all. It was 4 months. So that was just a really good project.
What was your overhead during those 4 months for our listeners?
Interest, right, that we're paying per month was 12%. Paying 12% interest.
I believe it's 10 now,
Okay.
right? It might have been 12. It might have been 12 at the time, but things have gotten better.
It's lower now. But but at the time it was 12%.
So it's 10%, and by the way, 2 points.
Yeah.
In full transparency, right? And that's pretty fair. Now, points, interest. A couple of things for the listeners. This is why they call it hard money, right? Because you forget about your conforming loans, conventional loans, right? That's where you're going to see the dramatic decrease in interest rates. Now, also, but even in hard money, if you're willing to pay a higher down payment, you'll start to see those interest rates come down. Okay, and the interest is very competitive. It's October 2021, so it's very. All we see is those interest rates coming back. Let me say that again. If you're willing to pay a higher down payment with different lenders, you'll have a lower interest payment. Okay.
What does that look like though for me? Can I factor that in that I'm making that money back, or do you look at it more like a fee? Like, how do you look at that when you're saying you put more down? Would you advise someone to put more down, or would you, is that something where you feel like you would advise someone to, or no?
Advise someone to take a hard money loan, or
no, advise someone to actually put more of their money, because we always talk about leverage, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, would you advise someone to go down that route and pay more, or would you say no, 100% financing, who cares, you'll make it on the back end? What's your take on that?
That's a really quick question. That's a really good question. It's also very hard to answer, right? I think it's so individualized. So meaning, like, because at the end of the day, if you have the money for the down payment, it's just math. It really was what it boils down to, is what I would tell you. So what I would say is I would do both. I would take both scenarios. Thank you. Exactly. So I would do one scenario where you're paying the higher down payment with the lower interest rate and do that math. And then I would take the scenario of a lower down payment, a lower down payment and a higher interest rate and do that math. Yeah. And a lot of times, right, Ruben, a lot of people don't have the luxury of that, right?
Yeah.
We for us, it was like we don't have that. We're doing a lot of flips. We don't have the cash. It's like, hey, we're not paying it. Yeah,
it's so interesting. You kind of stole my answer that I used this week to someone, because they're like, I think it was my fiance. She asked me, because we had someone in the family buying property, and after spending time with you guys, I'm known as the numbers guy, right? Thanks to you guys, right? That's what happens. That's when you're in proximity of greatness. So then I looked at it, and it's funny. Like we didn't even talk about this, but I was just like, well, it's just math. Like that was my response. That it goes back to the math. Like, does it make more sense for you to, I guess where I was going with this, because it is math, and you got to look at your balance sheet and your general ledger on your end and be like, hey, does this math work for me? Or do I want to be cash strapped for the next 4 months? Or do I want to keep some in the bank for a rainy day? And that's kind of a personal decision. But if you understand the math, I think sometimes we're so keen on, oh yeah, 2 points and 12%. Well, hold on. Maybe you don't have to pay the 2 points, or maybe you pay 4 points and maybe it's 10%. And maybe that makes more sense for you, right? Like depending on what I was going to go to next is your opportunity cost. That's what I'm big on. I was just on a call and I was late, and I apologize earlier because I was just telling that to a gentleman who's in my network who's thinking of like investing here. And I'm like looking at the numbers in Atlanta and I'm like, what's opportunity cost at the end of the day? You can lock this into one property, or you can take this money and put it to work further. So it really does always come down to the math, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's the math. And the beautiful thing about the math, like if you notice what I'll say a lot of times, I don't care. Who cares, right? Because, and what I love about math is it doesn't care, right?
Yeah.
No subjectivity.
Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie.
Exactly. So just and let it be your friend, right? Because it doesn't have all those opinions. It's telling you yes, no, don't do it, do it. You know, and it's pure like that. So, you know,
yeah, that's a good segue for what I want to ask you guys, because a lot of people have an emotional tie to like do what you guys are doing. I want to get into this whole how this operation looks like. You're both dialing in right now. I'm with these handsome gentlemen here dialing in, all from New York City. It's a damn shame we're not in the studio. That's why I got to put this SDR money to work so I can have you guys here in the studio. See, that's another conversation. But you guys are here in New York, man. You're doing this long distance.
Yeah.
And what I love about what you said is the numbers don't change if you're in Chicago, Ohio, New York, Florida, right? They don't. So I like that you guys are coming in with this perspective. Now, let me ask you, with respect to the marketplace, does your strategy look identical in any state that you go, or does it change in again, emotions aside, does it change at all based on if you're in Chicago or Atlanta or Ohio, or is it literally, nope, Ruben, this is literally what we do every single time?
Yeah, it's always going to change a little bit, right? Just based on proximity, locations, a lot of things. But a couple things we've changed too. So one of the ways that a lot of people are like, well, how do you flip remotely? First of all, a lot of people do, right? But everything is risk management, numbers being one part of it. The other part, right? So the numbers are one element. And then what is the other part? The human element. And so what are we talking about here? Where's the other biggest risk? There's two biggest risks in at least fix and flips, right? Is going to be most people don't know how to buy a deal, so your numbers are off, right? So if you're not,
what's the biggest mistake that you both see is happening when people are analyzing deal? Because to me it seems, I mean, I'm not going to say that it seems simple, but we've kind of given the blueprint. Where do you think we kind of, or even in retrospect, the mistake, even running through your formula, where do we see the mistake kind of maybe crosses that bottom line where it's like, oh, it's not what we thought? Where does that happen for our listeners?
It's they don't know how to do comp analysis. And I'll tell you, don't be afraid of comp analysis. It's like anything else, just keep doing it. It's actually relevant, and you'll, like, in the beginning, like anything else, you might be intimidated by it. It's just, you're looking at like properties. That's all you're doing. So
yeah, I mean, yep. Yeah, I was going to say, to add on to what V's saying, that, people hit us up a lot to JV deals with us. And, they email us the property, the address, and V and I look at it, and, V's really good at running comp analysis. And then V's like, hey, email that person back and tell them that deal's trash. Learn how to do some confidence.
He says it just like that too. He's not, there's no filter. This is actually the filtered down version.
He's like, yeah, V always.
That was
because
that was the rated PG version.
Yeah, he gets mad because he's just like, hey, they just wasted my damn time. And because it takes time to run these comp analysis. So it's like, they waste my time. That's trash. I tell them to learn how to do comp analysis, because they thought they had a deal and they don't. And
so it's as simple as the comps, Leonard, is what you're saying. It
totally
really comes down to the comps.
Yep. Everyone thinks they have a deal, but once you run the numbers, they realize that they don't have a deal. Or at least when we run the numbers. So if you think of a deal, you send it to us, and then we'll let you know, yeah, this is not a deal. It's
And
not.
if it is, we're going to jump on it. But let's like about what we're talking about, fix and flip for our loan parameters, which we already outlined, which is 70%, which is pretty standard, by the way. That is the standard. I mean, if you can, some lenders will go up to 75, that's great, right? But let's be clear, because we do have private investors now. We've had them, I think after the first project, we had some, we bootstrapped or whatever. But the point is that it's all out of necessity, right? And so if you are a person who does Airbnb and you're good with turnkey, this doesn't apply to you, right? So this applies specifically for fix and flips where you're trying to get under 70% LTV. That's what it applies to. We're not talking. So for people who are trying to do other things, it's fine. Here's another thing. Even for fix and flippers who are in a really great cash position, right? They don't need to have that, right? They can buy higher. And that's what they do, by the way. So a lot of times I get sent these wholesale deals and I might call them trash, right? Or worse, but someone else is buying them because they don't have the same needs. That's why we're talking about Shoreditch specifically.
Yeah, no, that's I'm so glad you made that highlight, because I think this is why I actually have the podcast, right? People say, I want to invest in real estate.
Yeah.
The next question is, what kind of real estate? Like, this is a huge umbrella. And you're saying within our umbrella, we do fix and flipping. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And within fix and flip, we use hard money.
Yep.
Now, within the hard money, those are our hard money metrics. And so you can't look at the guy next door, the gal next door, who maybe has a very different situation, a very strategy, a very different end goal than you do, who's maybe overpaying, right? Maybe some of these portfolio people sometimes are overpaying, and it makes sense for them because maybe they just need to make their investors happy, or they need to show that they're what's the word? Diversifying their portfolio into residential, and it makes sense for them for their books, right? There's just so many different reasons. Maybe someone's doing for me, a short-term rental. I don't really care because I'm playing a whole different ball game, right?
Like, so that's such a beautiful thing that also bring you into the subject matter as far as STRs are concerned, right? Short-term rentals are concerned. Those investors, they're seeing such a high cash flow that they're fine with quote unquote overpaying because they're making it back, and not to mention the appreciation, right?
Yeah.
And the tax depreciation. So how many things are they getting where they're like, okay, if I have to pay, there's this, sincerely, I never use this term lightly, right? But like a mastermind named Jay Massey, and I'm probably saying his name wrong. I always say it wrong. Massey. Folks, look him out. He's on Clubhouse, very big presence on Clubhouse. Also wrote a lot of articles on Bigger Pockets for a long time. Ruben, we were talking about an STR like guru. That's your guy. Okay.
Really?
Yes.
Jeez,
Just tell him that Vishnu sent you over. That's all I ask.
I got you.
So Jay does that. He is not concerned about the purchase price because the cash flow is so astronomical.
It's 3 to 5x what your mortgage is. How could like, that's all that I'm looking at. And the crazy part is, if you look at a loan, if you're depending on how you're financing it for a long term, or when I say a long-term loan, like not a short-term loan like hard money, but more of a long-term loan, right? Like conventional or whatever the case might be. Me paying 10K more or 20K more is going to make like a difference in like what, $50 maybe a month.
Right.
I'm sorry. That's my cleaning. That's half of my cleaning fee.
Right.
Like, what do I care?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, and this is why I think it's so interesting, because it really goes back to some of the principles that we're really circling around here in this conversation. Identify your end goal. Right. Totally. And then identify the strategy that works for you.
Yep. And
then double down on that strategy and stay focused. Don't get distracted.
Yeah.
Right. So Elle, help me out here, because you guys got into now private money. You guys laid down kind of the land of how hard money works. Makes sense for us. We understand how you guys are getting to that bag. We could see why you guys are smiling now and you're looking fantastic and you're getting younger every time I see you guys. It makes sense to me. Now talk to me about the different financing with private hard money. We talked about the math. When would one want to use private money? And how does that work? How is that different? Is that like raising capital the way one would buy multifamily apartments? Like, can you give us some context here of how that works?
Definitely. So, the difference is pretty simple. With private money, you can negotiate a lot better terms. So, meaning that for most private money lenders, if you're beating the bank, because a lot of people just have that money in the bank, and with the bank, where you're getting like less than 1%. So if you're able just to return on their money 5% and up, they're happy, very happy. And for us, it was, it started to get a lot more easier to gain interest from private money lenders because, one, we had HUDs, right, of the properties that we flipped and sold. And, what V stated earlier, numbers lie. I'm sorry, people lie, but numbers don't, right? So when they saw our numbers from our HUDs and saw that we were generating from our flips 6 figures in return, private money, private, like people with private money was like,
okay,
hey,
put my money to work.
We're in.
Oh, and you know what? I made a mistake in not tying the knot on that and I appreciate you bring me back on the whole HUD thing, because we had talked about the importance of HUD. First of all, it's a proof of concept, which is what I use now. I show my dashboard in Airbnb. I'm like, hey, listen, you want in or not? Come on, man. Like, what do you want? What are you doing? Right, guys, 25.75. We talked about this up flat. You're in or not? You're in or out? Numbers don't lie. Yeah. So I love that. You got HUDs. Cool. It ain't tricking if you got it. I've been using that line for a long time, right? Yep. So that's cool because that helps you on the private money side. Yes. But help us tie the loop with the hard money, because I think maybe I'm mistaken it, but I think with the hard money was kind of showing the hard money lender that, hey, you've done this 3 times, I think it was the minimum, and now we can give you better rates. Is that what it was? Just right. I don't think we tied that knot.
Yeah, so tie knot there. So on the private money side, the HUDs help, right? Because again, it's proof, the numbers are right there, they can see everything clear as day. On the hard money side, the HUDs help as well, because one, it shows that you have experience, it shows that you know what you're doing. And it shows that you're going to return their money. So with the HUDs on the hard money side, they're like, okay, yeah, you did X amount of projects. You returned the money, you paid your interest rates, interest payments on time, and it shows everything. And there will give you more better terms because you have experience, you pay on time, and you complete your projects.
Got it.
So they feel a lot more secure to give you more better terms with their money because they know that they're going to get the return back on the money.
Got it. Now, V, help me out on this one, because I remember we said we were going to be all rainbows and about this, right? There's definitely some struggles that we had to overcome. Yeah. Explain to me why. I recall you guys, just to give you context, and I don't know if I did a good job of doing this. I was representing as the realtor on the buying side, but I specifically work with investors like V and L, so I'm learning as well when I'm going through this. And I remember numerous conversations we had where it was like, you know what, this one, Ruben, they might not count this one, or they might not accept it. Can you remind me why? I don't know if I'm clear on this one, V. I think it was like, is it possible that a HUD maybe actually work against you because maybe the returns weren't there? I feel like we had a conversation where there was a specific property where it was like, didn't want to, that one didn't make the cut or something like that. Maybe L, you can.
Oh, he's talking about Woodland Circle.
Yeah, what happened on that one? Like, why wasn't that one? Why aren't all HUDs created equal?
Well, that really because of exactly what you said. Like, and we're in Shoreditch. We're always 100%. We differentiate ourselves by being transparent.
Yeah.
That means that you have to show the ugly as well, right? And the reason is not just to so I can say that, right? The reason why is so that people can learn from our mistakes. Woodland Circle, we are fix and flippers. What happens is, even though one of the things about remote flipping is we touched on this. Let me just kind of button this up for you. I'm going to hit two subject matters in one. Remote flipping is you can do it, but your contractor team has to be. You have to trust them. It's going to be trust, and that's it, right? Because at some point you're not there, and even if you were there, like so, any contractor relationship with the investor is essentially that boils down to trust at some point. So otherwise you're in lawsuits, right? So it's really that simple, and it is really that binary. It's one or the other. So so you can remote flip, but your contractor has to be on point. There has to be a trust level there. The way that we used to do things is we would actually make them equity partners, so it incentivized them to not screw us over, essentially, right? And to get the project done on time, because it's essentially their money, right? Because they're equity partners in the project. So we don't do that to the extent that we used to because of COVID, supply chain issues, blah, 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 a whole host of reasons why. But that was one way we minimized the risk, mitigated the risk rather, of contractor problems by incentivizing them. That's one part. The second part, to go back to Al's point, or to your point rather, Ruben, is as far as that doesn't count. The reason why the specific project that we're talking about that you represented us as an agent on is because there was a loss. And why was that? We're talking in by the way, again, in October of 2021, that happened last year in COVID, right? And we had, not only did we have supply chain issues, which drove up the cost, but then as every fix and flipper inevitably runs into, and some people run into it right off the bat, is we had overages because we had termite issues that we didn't anticipate. We had what a lot of people in commercial real estate call change orders. We also call them overages, right? That happen. By the way, we've never had one project where we haven't had an overage. There's always overages. Always.
And just when you use the word overage, is that like going back to that example for Penelope where you said, hey, it's going to cost us, I think our number was $68K in repairs. Yes. And we go over that number? Is that what we're saying?
100%, because that 68K, when Leonard was explaining our hard money loan, it's 100%. So even if you don't have the quote unquote 100% financing, let's say you put down 10% or 20%. And hard money, by the way, folks, if you're doing a purchase and refinance loan through a hard money lender, only talk to the lenders that are giving you 100% rehab. There's no point. That's standard. Okay. If they're saying something lower, walk away, because you can get 100% rehab financing into the loan. That's one thing. So as far as your point is, so yes, Ruben, to answer your question, yes. When we had that 68K, that was part of the rehab budget, but that's part of the loan. Any penny that goes above that is an overage. And where does that come from? Mr. Leonard Dixon Jr. over there, and yours truly, and our investors.
Yeah.
Okay. So as soon as it comes outside of that rehab budget, it is an overage or change order, and it comes directly out of our pocket.
So let's go back to that example for a second, because I want to make sure we bring this home. If your max loan value, like the last time for 250, 70% of that is 175, right? And you bought it for 92K. So now you have $83,000, of basically rehab. If I got that, did I get that right? So you go 257%, 175 is the max loan value. You bought it for 92, you have 83% rehab. Where did we get that 68K from? Is that okay? So that was the quote, let's say the quote that we got. So don't you still technically have 15K of wiggle room? That's the difference of 83K minus 68K. Doesn't that give you a $15,000
Well, what
window
you're
of
doing,
rare or no?
your mindset is in the right spot, but the thing is, so what happens in the hard money loan, because it's based on draw schedules. Okay, so that's the other part.
Oh, yes. Let's get into this. This is one where I had to wrap my mind around. Okay, great. Let's talk about that. Draw schedules.
Okay, so draw schedule. So when you're in a hard money fix and flip loan, the way that works is the 100% rehab, right? It's based on what we call a draw schedule. So, but when you go get the loan, right? So in the case of that we're talking about, the 68K, it comes from a construction budget from your general contractor. So that 68K is what they're lending on, right?
Oh, golly.
Yeah. So yes, like now, could we have said, hey, inflated numbers on line items and things like that, or better yet, there's usually a miscellaneous line item,
right,
and a contingency line item. Could you
inflate that?
Well, yeah, I mean, put it in. It's there for a reason. It's a line item that they provide for you, and you can put in. A lot of times they'll add a certain percent. It'll be 5%. I think it was 5% with the lender in that particular case. But if you want to be safe, okay, you can add more to that line item, or add more, to line items to keep yourself safe. And then if you don't use it, you don't use it, right? So absolutely, you could go that route, and then that way it's still part of the loan cost, right?
Right, not out of pocket.
Exactly.
Because what you're saying, and just so I'm clear for our listeners, because it sounds, and I appreciate us going through this, because, and this is the reason why we go in the lab, to kind of lift the hood, because you hear it face value, okay, cool, ARV, etc. But you don't get to hear about the
minutia. Let's get into this. We're in the
right. You're like right in there right now, right? Like we got the gloves on.
Yeah, I know. I'm prepared, man. So
yeah.
And it's
so nice. The draw. So yeah, help me out with that, because basically what you're saying, they're splitting that into, like, let's say what, a quarter payment?
That depends on how extensive the rehab is. So let's just watch.
That would get real. Now you're squeezing lemon. Okay, we're making lemon juice. Okay, so it depends.
It depends, right? Because if you're doing, it just depends on, we go down. We've always gone down to the studs, meaning, right, we're basically gut rehabbing.
Yep. Yeah.
And even when we don't plan on it,
it ends up being, we did talk about that. Like things end up being, which is another reference point that we can touch on later. Because I remember speaking with our contractor about just that, about how, what you're sending me is it looks cosmetic, but really it's down to the studs. Yes. Or at least we had some that look like it would require less, but hey, you actually got to take the whole thing down.
Exactly. And so and I think this is going to provide a lot of value for your audience. So basically the draw schedule works like this. You will have to come out of pocket. So it's a draw, it's a reimbursement is really what it works off of. Okay. So that's why I said quote unquote 100%, because there's cost. There's no such thing as no cost. So the way that you start off the draw reimbursement is you have to come up with cash. They'll reimburse you. So for example, in a fix and flip, you're really almost always going to start with demolition, correct? You might have a porta potty because there's no bathroom. You're going to need help me out, the dumpster to put all the demo and throw it out, right? So these are your first stages of the rehab process. So
and you're paying that out of pocket.
You pay that out of pocket. So let's say that all that costs you 15 grand. Right. So the investor has to come up with that 15 grand, correct? Yeah. And then, and that goes to your contractor, takes care of that demo, the dumpster, the porta potty, whatever, right? Those first initial stages. It doesn't have to be those three. You can go further.
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah.
Right. And so you pay that $15,000 to your contractor. They do that work. You call your lender and say you are ready for your first draw inspection, right? And now,
AKA send me the money.
Exactly. They send an inspector.
Quit playing games with me. You can say that too in the brackets, and then you sign off. You say V. I ain't playing with you.
And every lender has every lender has different kind of formulas and not formulas, but processes of the way they do the draw schedule. You want to have the one that's the least burdensome for you, right?
Let me ask you a technical question here. Are they expecting permits there? Do they some don't look at it? Like, and we don't have to get. I'm just very curious. Like, is this what they're looking for on this draw, or are they more like, no, just inspections with our guy? Do they send their guy? Like, what's the process with that?
Really great question, but that would be going back a second. So for permits, your permits should be like you have to have all those ducks in order, right? So permits, like you should have that ready to go. You know what I mean? Like, so you can't touch. So for example, you can't really do like, so you can't, there's certain things you can't do in a fix and flip, right? So anything structural, right? Anything that deals with structure or foundation, you're going to need a permit, right? So you can't really go and do that work without that permit, right? So that's done before you even get into the draw schedule. So let's just be clear about that. If you're doing structural or foundational work, right? Anything that essentially requires a permit, which of course is going to depend on the municipality that you're in, okay? But so yeah, so that's the permit situation. So that happens prior to the draw schedule. So when you're in the draw schedule situation, the first draw is the trickiest one, right? Because you got to come out with that cash, give it to your contractor. That's the only tricky part about it, is the coming up with that cash, which you should have. Otherwise, what are you doing? Like, you know that going into it. So right, because you can't start the rehab without that. So you have that money, you hand it over to the contractor, you call the inspector, the work is finished. That demo, porta potty, dumpster in this scenario, the work is finished. Call the draw inspector. He comes out, he inspects that the demolition is actually done. There is a dumpster that's, that you have ordered, and there's a porta potty sitting there. He sees that, right? Puts in his report. The lender, it goes back to that report goes to the lender. The lender okays it. Now your 15 grand is reimbursed to the
business checking account.
Yes. Exactly.
So you see that wire and you're like, whew, thank God. Now, if can there be some reason why they actually say, nope, didn't meet, we didn't see the dumpster? Like, help me out here. Like, what are some things that can go wrong in that process?
Great question. So the thing is that you have a knucklehead inspector, right?
Oh, stop. By the way, is it like a third party, or do they use their own people?
It's usually a third party. That's almost, it depends. That's really dependent on the lender, but it's almost everyone that
it's almost like an appraiser, almost like he's just like works for this company that they send out a guy.
Exactly.
Damn. So they have you by the balls, aka.
They do, but I would tell you, it's what's nice about the draw schedule is like, right, it's done or it's not done, or something, and that's not actually true. You can do percentages of completion. But that also depends on the lender. Some lenders will say, we want the entire kitchen complete, and that's when we reimburse you. So
interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
So
man, this is the most amount of this is a master class. We might have to do a Patreon section for this. Y'all might have to pay for this.
Yeah.
Part two. Wait, no, but it's honestly fascinating. I've listened to a lot of podcasts. Yeah. They talk about it. Oh, it hits your account, but like, we're not talking about the details. And this is what I'm trying to bring to you, Experiment Nation. Like, there's the devil's in the details, and I think it matters to give people context. So, so there's so hits your account. Things could go back. Like some different lenders have different things. Could be 25%. Some could say when the kitchen is done. Some could say when the floors are done. Some could say when the roof like, there's just so many. And what have you found? I guess, do you even know this going into when it's like date and then, oh, wow.
You need to ask about there's a lot of things that you need to be educated, like anything else. But this is what is great. Like you're saying, no one talks about the draw schedule this much on any podcast.
At all.
So, yeah. But the reality of the situation is, you want to ask them, what is their draw schedule and draw inspection look like? Right. So for right now, I didn't ask, by the way, on a property in our Chicago property. And it's not that it's that difficult, but it's just not something I'm used to doing. What I'm normally used to doing is saying, hey, we're ready for the draw inspection. Send the guy over. right?
Wait, this just gave me the goosebumps. This reminds me of when V used to make us huddle in the mornings and like, all right, guys, huddle up, troops.
Yeah.
Oh
Right.
man, I have like PTSD.
Yeah.
Come on, Ruben. Absolutely.
V is back.
So yeah, and that's as simple as that. And they come out, they take their pictures. It's very clear what's done. What I would always suggest for folks is always have your contractor meet the inspector. Now, the problem with that is a lot of inspectors don't want to meet anyone. So
they don't want to talk. They don't want to talk to anybody.
They don't want to talk to anyone.
It's like an appraiser. He doesn't want to hear you talk about, hey, by the way, do you see these comms? Like, let me do my work.
And they don't want you feeding them and stuff like that. But the appraisers are like a little bit, they can be even more, right? But in general, most inspectors don't mind. But yeah, there are some, like the one that we're dealing with now. He wants to come on weekends. He wants the lockbox. He doesn't want to be bothered. And then, of course, when we look at the draw schedule, half of it's not there, right? So it's like, so like try to get your contractor to meet the inspector to be, this is what we did, right? This is what we did. And so that way it just makes your life a lot easier. Okay.
Wow.
So now the other thing is you want to ask them, right? Is it going to be that call? Am I just calling? Come in, do the inspection, you send it out, they come in, it's simple. That's what we like, right? Because our life is difficult, right? So, or is it like, for example, right now with the lender that I'm using, they want us to plug in, right, percentages of what we've got complete, the amount that we got complete. It's like, oh yeah, I have nothing better to do with my time. So I have to sit there with an Excel and then I have to call the contractor. See, it becomes tedious, right? Especially when you're doing multiple projects. Yep. So I would encourage people, ask what that draw schedule looks like.
Yeah, and make sure it fits with your business model and your lifestyle and maybe your business style, right? I mean, that's so interesting. So with all that, is private money, Leonard, the way to go, brother? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah.
Like here, because we tied the knot in the hard money, and I appreciate you bringing us full circle here. Private money, excuse me. What does that look like? We put a bunch of money of the entire cost to repair, and we get they put it into an escrow, like an LLC account. Like, what does that look like, so that we understand how we might be able to use some private money?
I'm going to jump in on behalf of Leonard real quick, just because I deal with this a little bit more than he does, right? So, Al, do you mind?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, of course. So the private money, one of the things like...
Oh, well, hold on. Such a great partner, by the way, Al. You're such a good sport. Gosh. Thank you.
He is.
V, go ahead. He is. He's just a silent assassin. To bring him back. V, take us home. What is it? Help us out with the private money.
You won't have to deal with unless you have a private investor who makes you deal with this. And by the way, a friend of mine does. The private investor generally, right, they're upfronting the money. So where's the draw inspection, right? The draw inspection, what I suggest you do is you still work it on a draw inspection because it's safe. It saves you, right? You want it, right? It's a check.
You want them to know. You want them to know what you're doing, or is it the other way around? Did you say you want the draw as you taking the money?
Yeah, I mean, like just in case they might try to ask a bunch of questions.
Yeah, you want to keep them in the loop almost.
You keep them in the loop. So
let me clarify.
This is what we did. Yeah,
it's getting a little bit confusing. What I'm saying to you is you have a private investor, right? Now, private investment, let's break that down. So the private investor, right, or a group of investors. So the beautiful thing about it is it gives you, it kind of takes off the handcuffs of a hard money lender. One of those things is, do you now have to come under exactly 70% LTV in order to get the bet, right? No, you don't, right? So you're convincing private investors based on your deal, based on their return. Right. So now that's the as far as evaluating the deal, handcuffs are off, right? You just have to convince your investor that this is a good place. Ruben, to your point, this is a great opportunity cost for them. Put your money here and make right. And now what does that entail? Pitch deck, offering memorandum, you have to do some work, right?
And for you, I guess the calculator is very different now. You're saying, okay, if I can bring back, if I can buy this at 175 all in, right, with including my repair costs, then now you're doing a spread and you're dividing it by the amount of investors. Like how does that even look like? Yeah.
Yeah, so you should just look at it like this, right? To L's point, when he was talking about the banks, a lot of people have their money parked in IRAs that aren't making anything. So
Absolutely.
right. So and you know about that, so we don't need to dwell into it. But the point is like, what I'm saying to you is, all we're doing is replacing hard money with private investors, right? So, and now if it's up to you, if you want to incentive, like make it even more of a draw, and you want to slide them some equity, that's fine. That just makes them love you even more, right? But really, you're replacing the hard money lender. The way we look at it is you're replacing the hard money lender with private investors, right?
Oh, interesting. So you might even structure the expectation of, hey, you'll get a 12% return.
Exactly. Like if it makes sense for us to do that, of course, right? Whatever, it's going to be dependent on the profit projections and the margins and things like that. But yeah,
but you want their money to work harder than maybe beat the stock market. I would hope something to that extent.
Yep. Not the way the stock market and the crypto has been going for the last all that, man. So, but if you don't want to be in crypto, because we can't mess with those kinds of returns at this moment. Now, if that crashes, that's a different thing because it's volatile, right? So, we're talking about real estate, but yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was talking with the guy. This is again above my head, or even I'm trying to stay ahead of this stuff, but he was saying you're gonna be like, stop. He was talking about like DeFi, and shout out to you, Jordan, DeFi Central or something, DeFi something, and he was talking about 55,000% APY, and I'm like, bro, what?
Yeah.
Like, this is the crypto space.
Yeah,
I'm like, what is going on in this universe? So anyways, yeah, but if you're looking for an asset that you can see, touch, and drive by,
right,
we're gonna, the crypto stuff, that's a whole nother thing for another expert.
Yeah.
But for these investors who understand, because I think that's important, you understand real estate, you could see it, you could touch it, you understand, you've seen the HUDs, then you're like, okay, cool, I'm in. Yeah,
it's good. Like if you're a newbie and you're trying to get private, then that's the thing. Like the hard money, like I would really say it like this, and this is leveling up. You hard money is great when you're new because you don't have HUDs, right? So like even if you don't have HUDs, that's another thing with hard money. You should be able to even do things at 10% down. And when we say hard money, what is another thing about hard money that a lot of conforming loans don't have? Well, do you need to have the perfect credit score? No, right? A lot of times there's no no stated documents. It just depends on the lender. So hard money is hard because the interest rate is higher. But if you can't qualify for a conventional loan, why are we even talking about it? You need to do hard money, right? Yeah. So it's like people think they have options when they don't, right? And no money is better than none. Right. So yes, you're paying a higher interest rate, but you're getting in a deal, you're getting experience, and you're getting in the game.
Yep. Yeah. I want to get into the, what's happening in our current market before, because I know we've been on the air talking, we could go on for hours. Yeah. One thing I want to give you the opportunity to just give me a quick snippet inside your world on the small business credit, because I think that was a good segue. I don't know how deep you want to go into it, but as far as just understanding that is another avenue, can you just touch on that just for a bit, so we can kind of tap that in and log that into our notepad?
Sure. So like just to button up the last subject, what I would say to a lot of people is eventually you want to maybe start with the hard money, maybe bootstrap, right? To get, by the way, you don't have to do all one or the other. There's such thing as gap funding as well. So maybe you can't come up with the down payment, right? But you can go now but I'm just going to throw that out there, because again, we can talk forever about that. And I know you had a gentleman on your podcast named Tony Javier, I believe. Mm-hmm. Right, who does gap funding. So who I need to reach out to, by the way. Shout outs to Tony. But it's Tony Javier or Tony, I can't remember his last name.
That's right, that's how you say it. Yeah.
So Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity or possibilities there. To answer your question, Ruben, okay, actually rephrase that again. Sorry.
Yeah. I think the question was, because we were tying the private money thing together, and I was saying, okay, you were talking about the evolution of, you want to go hard money, you want to go private money, and you don't have to do it all. You can leverage gap, right? What you're saying is you're kind of just leveling up.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that we had talked about that I was not familiar with, you talked about small business credit, and
Oh,
I was
yes.
just curious if you want to just plug that in to help us understand, like, what is that, and how could even that be another avenue if I don't want to use hard money, or if I don't want to use private, or maybe I have to co-use it somehow. I don't know. You tell me. You're the expert. How does that come into the what is that stack on the shelf in the lab? When do I go grab this and that? Small business credit.
Yeah, absolutely. So the small business credit cards is what
Cards. Yeah, I think that's important. Cards, credit cards. Those are credit cards for LLCs.
Yes.
Absolutely. You will have to have an entity, but the beautiful thing about that is your entity does not have to be, a lot of people think, well, does it have to be 2 years old? And they get right, which is a great question, but no, it does not. So for example, in spring of this year, I formed an LLC for my dad. And a month later, we had $48,000 in small business credit cards with that LLC. Right now, part of that is because my dad's credit profile is amazing. Part of that is, but listen to what I'm saying. The LLC was not even, it was like a month old, right? So the way that small business credit cards work, right, is they what they're doing is they're going to look at you, right? So you, Ruben, Leonard, myself. So they're
personal folks associated with the entity, right?
exactly. So they're going to be
personal credit. Somebody attached.
yes, you are exactly. Leonard's correct. You're PGing these, right? So which means they're looking at your personal credit profile, right? And they're seeing how you behave, right? Now, if you behave in a way that they like, and what I mean by that is qualifications, right? Then you are eligible for small business credit cards. Now what will happen is you will get small business credit cards. So they are underwriting you personally. But once you get the small business credit cards, true small business credit cards, not Capital One, which does this nice mix of doing both personal and business, which is what you don't want to do. And I'll get to that in 1 second, because this is going to be very much a value add to your listeners. So what I'm saying to you, by the way, what did I just say? My dad just did this in spring. Leonard Dixon Jr., my partner, did it the year prior, and I did it the year prior. Again, we don't talk about things that we don't do or have fully researched. And they've been so integral for the running of our business. Here's what I'm getting at. They're going to look at your personal credit profile, right? If you have a decent credit profile, which the company that we use will evaluate for you for free, so you don't have to make any decision right there, meaning they'll look at your personal credit profile and tell you, we estimate that we're going to get you X amount of dollars in small business credit cards, right? You are going to say, that sounds good, that's too little. Or they also will say you're not qualified. They might even say to you, you don't qualify for small business credit cards, but you only qualify for personal. I want you to tell them thanks, but no thanks, because everyone can go get personal cards on their own, right? So, and so what will happen is they will first see if you're qualified, because everybody's credit profile is different. You might have a bankruptcy, you might have you might have some things, derogatories, right, that might keep you away for doing the small business credit cards. Now, this is why you talk to us. First, you get the consultation, let them tell you what's going on. Just like you go in for a checkup, now you know what's happening, right, with your body. And they say, hey, you need to eat right, cut down on the salt. If there are things that are wrong in your credit profile, let them tell you for free, right? And then you take that information, you come back to us, and then we set you up with the people that will repair that, right? Now, if you are good to go, get the credit, go get that money, right? Go get the small business credit cards. And what you are doing when you're doing that, right, is you're setting yourself up for this entire world that's called business credit, right? And by the way, we're talking about small business credit cards is because what Leonard did, what I did, what my father just did, what people that we consult with do a lot. But I will also tell you that might not be the best route. And this is why we are Shoreditch Consulting. Because yes, we make money when we're affiliated with you, but we care about our clients first because we care about relationships first. So your best route might be, hey, building out your entity's business credit. And if you get the small, like, so everything has to be done in a certain sequence. Because if you get small business credit cards, you might be doing that out of sequence. That's why we need to talk to you, because that might not be the best route. We might have to send you to somebody else to build out your business credit, because that's where you're going to get more business credit funding. All that
was that build. Did you mean build out your personal?
Nope.
Build out your you meant business?
Business.
I meant business. So
interesting.
But it also might be the situation where because anything on the business credit side, until you get to X amount of dollars in revenue, which most people don't have, so I'm not going to talk about, everything is personally guaranteed. Right. There's this misconception that you can go get these non-PG things. There are some fintechs that will do that. By the way. But again, remember, you're in the business credit realm. You want to do sequencing. You need to do things in a specific order. Now, is it okay if you do things out of order? Absolutely. But all will do is delay you for bigger amounts. It's okay to do it because nobody does it correctly, man. I have not met one person who has done this thing correctly. Everybody does it incorrectly because you only know what you know. But the point is, come talk to us. We have gone through the pain, so you don't have to. We have done like my friend Merrill Chandler, right? Who's a Get Fundable podcast, who teaches people how to personally optimize their personal credit report so they can get the 850 and go get the bag, right? He's on the personal side. He also does the business side, he does everything. My buddy Flame Newton, I'm doing some shout outs right now, right? My friend Herman, right? Herman the Third. Okay. These are great people in business, personal, that you guys should be following on Clubhouse or looking them out. We affiliate ourselves with the best because we've made enough mistakes, right? So you don't have to, but you need to come talk to us, right? You need to come talk to us so you do the sequencing correctly. We only have your best interests in order because we are not about the bottom line. If we were, we would already be much richer than we are, right? What we are about is about building relationships, taking care of people. Leonard knows this from day one. No one messes with my name. My name is synonymous with Shoreditch. That's it. That's how I roll. And that's how he rolls.
I appreciate that. How can people find out more about that specific getting involved with small business credit cards if they wanted to?
This email.
Okay.
Email.
Awesome. I'll make sure to include that in the show notes if you're
and also too, like to V's point, I mean, V and I, we help people buy their first short-term rental. We help someone buy their short-term
using business credit cards.
Using these steps to get their first investment property.
It doesn't have to be business credit. Like even that, Ruben, is going to be dependent on the person, right? So because the thing is, on the FHA side, if they're a first-time home buyer, right, and or house hacking, like the conforming, and Ruben, I know you use conventional loans, right? Those terms are amazing. Right? Those terms are really great. So we're not going to, again, we're going to put you in direct contact with what's best for you, but we can only do that not on a podcast. We need to talk to the person individually.
I just wanted to give some context of what Leonard was saying, so they understand why they would get on a call with you. Is to, if I get on a call with V and Leonard, I can expect this, right? And with nothing guaranteed, but it would be okay. This is the reason why I should call them. So I just wanted to tie that together.
Well, the reason why I have to emphasize this, and a lot of times I get criticized for being the woo-woo guy. Go ahead and criticize me for being the woo-woo guy. I'm Indian American. I believe in karma. It is my modus operandi. So I'm not allowed to screw people up, right? It's just like, because I believe that'll come back to me, right? And so there's a healthy fear there that we have to do things in the best interest of people. That's the only way we can do it, right? So if that means, and by the way, the other thing about that is we look at everybody, Ruben, you know this. I never referred, and if I did, I tried to apologize, as to refer to you as our real estate agent. It was always partner. It's always partner, because that's how we look at everyone, as either our partner or potential partner. It might not be, in a contract, but we know that later on that is a very strong possibility. It's only a possibility if you take care of people.
Got it. Absolutely. So let's just to tie this together. One thing I want to talk about is going back to, I think you gave a lot of the tools, both of you, of how to get to the real estate and how to flip, what tools, what financing do you need to have in place. And we spent a lot of time on that, and I appreciate it because it's something that's required, that's sometimes overlooked. We just talk about the deals and not really how we got the deals. Now let's talk about the physical real estate. We were talking about this when we were offline, that the inventory has been shot. Like there's no inventory. Leonard, tell me a little bit about how you guys navigate now when we're talking about, okay, finding 70% ARV, where I'm in a market where I was just telling you on one of my duplexes, it's a little bit of a different product, but there's, we put in an offer on one and there was 36 offers on a property. Wow. Right? What does that look like? Because that's me. I'm in the turnkey finished product market. You guys are in the, trying to, rehab market, right? What is that? What's that?
Yeah. We're in a market of buying a property to appreciate it. What does that look? What does that look like? The inventory right now, is it still the same level playing field as it was before, or has the prices are they even being sold at a premium? Some of these properties that you're buying to rehab. Yeah. So currently right now, inventory is low. There's not a lot of deals out there. We're looking in multiple markets, not just Atlanta, not just Chicago. I mean, Bean's been looking out there in California, different markets as well.
Hold on. We went to California. I didn't know that. That means the ship has rocked.
Yeah.
We're going back to the West Coast.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, even with the moratorium ending, right? It's early stages, but there's not a lot of deals for fix and flipping. So what, V and I have started to turn to is one, new construction. We have a project in Atlanta that we're looking to start very soon. It's a new construction project. And also we're starting to look at the short-term rentals, right? And it's been a combination of this low inventory, but also supply chains with lumber, paint, windows, appliances. Everything is low inventory right now, is driving up the cost and also eating into your margins when you're trying to fix and flip. So normally we're making 6 figures on our flips. Now is half if you're lucky, right?
Wow.
So
this is way worse.
Yeah. So that's why we're going into new construction. New construction, the duration of those projects could be anywhere.
Are shorter?
No, it could be anywhere from 10 months to a year.
So
but the turn is a little more better, because it's
why is that?
Well, to your point, right? You just said that for short-term rentals, you want a turnkey. New construction, you're getting a turn
premium.
Well, the other thing about new construction, let's just keep it really simple, right, Ruben? What do we all like? And leave the turnkey out of it for a second. But in real estate, in anything, right? How do you add the most value? The most value you can do in real estate is to take a piece of dirt and make it valuable. How do you do that? By building something that people want on top of it, right? So just by definition of economics, by adding the most amount of value right, you're going to make the most amount of profit. So when you're taking,
But let me ask you for a second, because I wanted to ask this both of you guys before we get too deep into it. What's making it more cost effective or more? Because if I'm looking at a tear down and I build it back up, I've seen your products. You guys finish very, very well. It almost looks like new construction. I mean, it might as well damn well be new construction. Are we saying that the demo cost is not worth it? Is it even the cost? Like, I'm trying to understand. Like,
yeah, I mean, what we were saying,
difference
like,
here.
I mean, for new construction, we're buying a plot of land, right? You buy a plot of land. You're working with an architect to get the blueprints. You're getting plans together. So it's a lot more different process of buying a house, and that's a shell, and kind of like and refurbishing it. This is totally.
Oh, so what you're saying is it might actually be. So let me ask you, I just very upfront, is it more cost effective to build new construction, or is it that the retail price goes even higher? Like, what
we're finding in our fix and flips is that we're pretty much doing, to your point, we're pretty much doing new construction, but it's not technically new construction because we're buying an existing house with existing.
It's resale,
house. Right? So what we're finding with the market right now, with inventory, with supply chains being totally out of whack, we're like, you know what? Let's just do a real new construction projects now.
So you're saying numbers wise, because I want to go back to the root. So numbers wise, what are you guys seeing?
So we can answer that a little more for number wise of new construction. Yeah. Versus
are you getting better margins in new construction? Is where I want to get at. Is it?
Yeah. I understand where you're getting at. So the fix and flip. The reality of the situation is when you're doing a fix and flip, there's, even if you have a great contractor, there's things that come up. And now COVID, like whether it's supply chain, that was due to COVID and things that macroeconomic things that we don't need to talk about here. But the point is things happen, right? And so, but now what I would say is in a fix and flip, there's always some unforeseen costs, which is going to hit you. We call it overage or change order, right? And so
in other words, it's not a clean slate.
Exactly. So like with the new construction, right, it is a clean slate because you have plans. You have to have plans on any new construction, right? So it's like you're building exactly you said it perfectly. It's a clean slate. So it's a repeatable process. The same one down the street was the exact same material, the exact same. It's predictable. It's predictable because every fix and flip, every building is existing, and it all has its own unique characteristics.
Malfunctions. I love how you said that. There was like a subtle vein that popped as V said that.
Every time, man. Every time. And you feel this, right, Ruben? Like your Airbnb that you had with that, I think it was a washing laundry.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It happens even in the.
Why you had to go there, man? I'm trying to ride high right now.
Just try to relate, man. Relate the pain. That's all.
Try to keep it 100 in the lab. Absolutely, L, you know that. I was telling you guys, I was crying on the other line. I'm like, I just rehabbed this. Oh man, never a dull moment. So that's interesting because I didn't know this going into this call, and it makes sense. And even from a finished product, if I'm thinking right now, if I'm on the market, I might be like, hey, let me just go to new construction. This brand new smell, whatever. Like I might be willing to pay more of a premium. Maybe, I don't know. I was just curious to see what your data tells you. The only not concern that I was thinking, I'm like, well, materials are going up everywhere. So that pretty much cancels out. And then, but I think where you got me in this for experimentation is it's all the unpredictable variables. The confounding factors that you don't foresee, the overages that happen when you're rehabbing, and the scope of work and demo. I don't know how much demo costs, but we could add that in there, right? Interesting. Wow. Okay, cool. So I like that because this is right on brand, guys, right? Experiment, fail, learn, repeat. And one of the things we had to do was adapt in the marketplace. And that's what you guys have done. You say, hey, you know what? to L's point, things have tripled, costs have tripled across the board. We used to make six-figure, flips, and now it's, margins are being cut.
Yeah.
How do we adjust and pivot? And that's what I actually appreciate about, having you guys step into the lab, is being able to show kind of the highs and lows, and showing how that transition needs to happen in a business, because everything is fine until you get punched in the face, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really happens.
So yeah, just the couple of things that when you're talking about, so we like, because there's a lack of deals, right? And I just want to add some value to your audience before we wrap this up here. Like, we have to pivot. That's what we've come to that conclusion. Fixing and flipping is great, but when you don't have deals in the pipeline and deal flow, listen, again, out of necessity, we have no choice but to pivot. What I would say, that one of the things that I've learned to do a long time ago is don't overthink. Copy and paste what the smart money is doing. So for me, the new construction development is right on the money, because there's, Blackstone, right? These big hedge funds, Wall Street, they're all looking at buy to rent on single families. So to me, I do everything as risk mitigation layer cake, right? So if I do a new construction development and I can't get rid of it, well, then maybe I become the bank, right? And I become the bank, meaning those become buy to rent developments, right? And then you're looking at maybe an exit with the
Smart.
right? So we're always looking to risk mitigate. We do that by looking at, I don't have an ego here, neither does Al. There's people smarter than us. What are you doing over there? Copy, paste, move along with life, right? So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is, lack of deal flow. Another reason is because I used to do new construction, right? And then the other thing is the relationships that we built, and now we have the private investments to the relationships to go and be it, because the new development is, even new construction is a different loan parameter, right? If you're looking at hard money, and so that's another great reason to go after the private investors, because again, it just makes your life a lot easier.
Which I love, because it brings everything full circle. You guys put yourself in that position to be in the position to pivot. And I think that's important. That, sometimes if you say, oh, we'll only use hard money, and then you don't use private money, and you don't evolve to that level. Now, when you're doing new construction, because it's a whole different ball game, maybe hard money doesn't look so good for new construction, but the fact that you had leverage the private money, allows you, the fact that you experimented, rightfully so, into that vertical, it allows you to have an option to pivot. And sometimes that's what we want. And I know you and I in VNL, we were talking about this offline about, the reason why, we were talking about short-term rentals versus vacation. We like to have options as investors, right? Yeah. Where we can choose to, hey, you know what? This doesn't look so hot right now. Let's put in some long-term rentals. Oh, guess what? I had already factored that into my risk management, and I know that the rents still cover the mortgage, right? Short-term rentals models was just icing on the cake, right? Like having that versus vacation rentals, where it might be, hey, actually, we don't have a backup plan. We're not putting ourselves in a position to pivot. So these are all interesting, and I think it comes full circle about knowing what your end goal is, knowing where you want to get to, and what tools are you utilizing along the way to have your successful experiments being that wherever you want to get to. Now I got to ask you guys, things have changed. How does that change how you guys view what's next for you, as far as getting to maybe those multifamilies, etc.? Do you guys feel like you're just taking a different route, or has the end goal also changed?
We're definitely still getting there, right? I mean, so that next step for us is new construction. And from the new construction is definitely to start doing the multifamily, start doing the bigger syndications, start doing those dream projects where it's like 25 to 30 units. Start even getting into commercial development as well. So we're just taking baby steps. We're growing, but those projects are multifamily, syndication, commercial are still on our roadmap. We just taking us a little while. I mean, well, it's only over like 2 years, a little over 2 years. So we're gonna get there. We're definitely gonna get there.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
To Leonard's point, when you put it in perspective like that, like he just said, I mean, I sometimes I think, as you know, Ruben, right? I could be pretty harsh, right? But that harshness comes from a place of we've accomplished quite a bit in 2 years, right?
Yeah.
A little more than 2 years, and was that to say that was not very difficult? Well, it was, right? And that's why I pushed so hard, and I pushed everyone around me because to be able to say that we accomplished something, but we're not done. We're just beginning. And the amount of things that we've done in those 2 years, I am proud of. I never say that, right? But I am proud of us. And Ruben, you were integral to that as well. So 100%. I'm not just saying that to blow smoke. That is 100% real. And so
you are on my platform, so I do appreciate it. I don't want to go ahead and have to mute you. You know, I am in control. You're now in my territory. This is my digital real estate.
That's right. You're in control, sir. That's absolutely right. And as it should be. But my real point is that whether it's new construction, and I will tell you, but again, to your point, Ruben, we're coming into that. Like Alice talking, new construction takes a while, right? You're looking at 9 to 12 months, no matter what. Yeah. There's no way around it, right? Now, what I will say is, so we're looking at, and again, another inspiration. It would be a lie. I mean, of course, I talked to a lot of STR people, but I started talking to you about that way before them. Right. And so you really inspired us to look into that. And I will tell you another thing. I talk to investors on the day-to-day, right? On the day-to-day, multiple investors all the time. The happiest investors that I run into are in the short-term rental space. They are not flippers like what we do, right? So there's a lot to be said about quality of life, right? So we're coming in to that space as well.
Yep. And I'm gonna welcome you guys with open arms.
Definitely.
And that's a beautiful thing, opening up doors for one another. I think you guys are doing it the right way. That's why I'm really proud of you guys. Know how we're all selective with who we hang around with, and for me, when you guys pulled me into the project, not only did I get a chance to learn so much, but I got a chance to we got a chance to experiment together, and that be kind of a reference point for future projects as well. And I think you guys are doing it the right way. You're following your path that makes sense for you, and you're seeing the results in your way. And I think that's important because I think the point of having you come into this lab is sharing that journey and seeing it full together. So we know that you guys will be back in the lab for sure as you continue to make progress. We'll use it as a nice milestone reference point to keep us all humble. And but for today, man, guys, I mean, we went over time. I don't think I've ever spent this much time, but these are my pals. I had to, we might have to cut this into 2 segments and maybe put a little bit on a little paywall or something. I don't know, but I know that you guys over delivered. You guys over delivered, and I want to give you guys the opportunity to definitely connect. Listen, if you guys are trying to connect with these 2 fine gentlemen here who've had the pleasure of, working with together in Atlanta and being learning from them, being able to share wins and losses together, I want to make sure you go to Shoreditch Consulting LLC.com. That's SHORE ditch as a DITCH consulting LLC.com, and definitely email if you want to email Leonard Dixon. It's going to be LD@Shoreditch Consulting LLC.com. And if you're trying to hit up my man Vishnu, that's VC at Shoreditch Consulting LLC.com. And also be sure, they gave us a lot of tools today. I would just connect with them. But then specifically, if there was that small business credit thing kind of resonated with you, they do have some strong connects in that space, and they do work with the best. And I know I've worked with them. So, my platform is verified. So with that, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. I mean, it's so funny. I saved some juice for next time. We're going to go, I can't go through the rapid fire round. There's just too many good stuff that you guys left, but man, any predictions? I like to use this as a nice lab. Next time you guys step in, where will you guys be so we can kind of have a reference point, almost like an accountability check, and I can say, yes, V and L had told me that they would do this in the lab in October 2021. What do we got? What are we projecting?
Yeah,
V, I'll let you be conservative. L, take us to the promised land. I know V, you're the risk manager. Where are we going?
For the next time, we should be in several new construction projects, and we should be owning several short-term rentals.
I love it. We'll definitely make that happen collectively. And my man V, what you got for us, brother?
Yeah, I mean, the way that when Leonard puts it out there, that just for me is that becomes reality. And then it's my job. He puts it out there, right? And then I have to go make it happen. but so so that thanks, Leonard. Not a lot to do. But I would also say, guys, we help on business funding. We have people that can help you to fix your personal credit. And one thing that we would be remiss to mention is we're always looking for investors.
Yes.
We're always looking for investors but I will say it has to be a good fit, right? We don't just work with everyone. And believe it or not, we actually do turn investors down because we want it to be a good fit both financially and personality wise. So, but we're always looking out for new investors and to come find, you can also find me. I'm like a D-lister on Clubhouse, right? So you can find
He's a celebrity, y'all.
You can come find me in real estate rooms and Clubhouse where I drop a lot.
What's your handle on Clubhouse, V? Did you change it to Celebrity V or what is it?
I was thinking about value add Vishnu, but I thought that was too corny. Yeah, so I just stuck
that's not bad. Double V.
I love that.
Just Vishnu Chintam. Yep. So Vishnu is my first name. Chintam is my last name. And that's it.
Hey, real quick before we jump. Last thing that we're about to be launching soon that Vishnu is going to be launching that you definitely hit a Vishnu on is that we're going to be lending. We're going to be hard money lenders where if you have a project and you need funding for your real estate investment project, definitely hit up Vishnu. Hard money lending is here. It's happening. We know very well. And we'll definitely let you know if we have a deal. So if
what I was saying, I can't believe I forgot that. Thank you. That's why he's my partner, right? The hard money lending and the beautiful thing about that is what people are going to find is that there's a lot of brokers out there, but I'm going to analyze your property like it's my property.
Yep.
Right. And I'm going to pass it to the people. So our job is to get you to actually close the deal. Right. But I'm also going to be, and Ruben knows this, and Leonard unfortunately deals with it on the day-to-day. I'm going to tell you the truth, right? Not what you want to hear.
Nothing but the truth.
And the last thing I would say is it's not just hard money loans. We also do business purpose loans. So that could be loans for all types of it doesn't have to be real estate. So really, essentially what I'm saying to everyone out there, come talk to us, guys. We're here to help.
If you're looking for the bag.
Yeah,
go talk to Vishnu and LD.
Somebody hit us up.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. Honestly, it was long overdue, and I love that we could just pick up where we left off, and that's what it's all about when you have these great relationships that we've built, and as true practitioners. That's what I love, and that's why I invited you guys over here on this platform to kind of share with Experiment Nation. Your experiments, wins and losses. So we're rooting for you guys. We're supporting you, and just like that, we are out.